Hi friends. Well, Kathy Weens here. Welcome to my channel. I'm a trauma recovery and women's empowerment coach, and I'm glad you're here today. And today we are going to learn how shame, guilt, and obligation causes us to hang on to things, both physical things and emotional things. Now, I understand this issue of clutter and decluttering because I've experienced it myself. Now, I'm not a hoarder, but I know that I have hoarding tendencies. That means I'm a little messy, not very tidy, and I hang on to way too much stuff. And sometimes I hang on to things out of obligation, out of guilt, even out of shame. And so today I want to share a story with you from my personal life about how I held on to something out of obligation. So this is a quilt that my mom made for my sister. Now this quilt is very special because it's what's called a friendship quilt. And a friendship quilt is a special blanket or quilt made by a group of friends. And so each person makes one square of the quilt and they add their name to it. They usually, do some embroidery on it and add their name or maybe a nice message. And then all of the pieces are sewn together to show love and appreciation for the person that it's given to. Well, with the quilt that I'm talking about today, many members of my family made a square. So this quilt includes beautifully embroidered squares from my mom, my sisters, my nieces, my aunts, my cousins, and other family friends. And many of these women are now passed on. They're not with us anymore. So this is really a piece of family history. Okay, so it's important. And my sister, who the quilt was made for, it was made for her 40th birthday. She has also passed on. And when we were going through her things after she died, nobody else wanted this quilt. But because it was so beautiful and it held so much family history, I took it. I felt like I had to do that out of obligation. But now for the past 10 years or so, I've had this quilt. I haven't really used it for anything, but I've moved it from house to house, and I've tried to decide what to do with it. I've had to store it. And so the reality is this quilt has taken a lot of my energy and time to figure out what to do with it. And the bottom line is I kept this quilt out of obligation. Obligation to my sister and to my mom, and obligation that this is a piece of family history. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Keeping things out of obligation or guilt, or maybe even sometimes out of shame. You know, so many women who struggle with people pleasing also struggle with clutter. Not because they're disorganized, but because every object seems to carry emotional weight. Just like this quilt carried this emotional burden, this obligation that it was a family heirloom and that it should stay in the family. And so obligation is really a form of people pleasing. It's keeping things just because you want to make other people happy or you want to avoid conflict. Those are people-pleasing things, and sometimes we hang on to things out of those kinds of obligations. And this means that you're trying to make other people happy, even if it doesn't make you happy. And the reality is this quilt wasn't making me happy anymore. You know, for you, it might be something different. Maybe it's a gift from a friend that you don't even have contact with anymore. Or maybe it's a piece of clothing that doesn't fit you, but maybe you spent a lot of money on it, and so it's really hard to donate it. Or like me, maybe it's the family heirloom that you are finding really hard to get rid of. And that's when guilt and obligation can whisper in your ear, you should keep this. Watch out for those should messages. But the truth is, guilt and obligation are not good reasons to hold on to things. Keeping things out of obligation doesn't honor you, and it doesn't honor the person that gave it to you. It just weighs you down, and it weighs on your heart. So when I think about this quilt, I have to think about, would my sister and my mom want me to keep this quilt out of obligation? Or would they want me to be free of the clutter in my life? Well, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to that. They would want me to be free of the clutter. They would want me to live a happy life and to put my energy into other places other than this quilt, even though it's beautiful. And so it is time for me to let this quilt go. If not now, when? When am I going to do it? Am I going to take this quilt with me to my nursing home room? Or am I going to leave it for my children to take care of? No, I need to let it go now. And I can let it go with love and respect that honors not only myself, but it also honors my mom and my sister. Today's challenge is to recognize that releasing something with love is an act of respect. We can take the item, we can thank this item for what it represents, and we can trust that letting go doesn't mean that we are ungrateful or that we are unkind. That's not what it means at all. Because your home should reflect the person that you are today, that you are now, not who others expect you to be or who you feel you should be out of obligation to family or friends. You are allowed to choose peace. You are allowed to choose peace over obligation or pressure or guilt or shame, like we talked about too. So you could start with just one item that feels heavy with guilt, or maybe it's something that's taking up a lot of space, like this quilt takes up a lot of space, and you can set it free. You deserve a space that nourishes you. You do deserve that. So let me know in the comments, what's something that you are holding on to out of obligation or guilt or maybe shame? Okay, and since this is a challenge, I have an insight, an affirmation, a journal prompt, and an action step for today. So here's the insight, and this is what we've been talking about. But guilt is not a good reason to keep something. Okay, really take that in. That's what you're feeling. Guilt, obligation, shame, not good reasons to keep things. The affirmation is, I am not obligated to carry emotional weight through objects. Now for me, of course, it was the quilt. And while it's beautiful, it's not my sister, and it's not all those other family members that put their squares on the quilt. Actually, what it is, a quilt is just pieces of fabric sewn together. And so I think oftentimes we think that the thing we're holding on to, it does represent the person and the memories. But the reality is, it's pieces of cloth, or, it's whatever, a piece of glass or a piece of jewelry. It's not the people. And we can hold on to the memory of those people that we loved and, what they gave to us. We can hold on to that in our hearts while letting the object go. Okay? And then the journal prompt for today is, what am I keeping out of guilt or family obligation? So think about that for yourself. Now, I've shared my story, but what's going on with you? Put that in the comments. What came up for you today that you could let go of? And do some journaling around that. It's always important to journal. That just gets it out of our minds in a different way, and we can process it in a different way. And then the action step that we've already talked about is to let go of one guilt item. Could be an obligation item or a shame item or a guilt item, but to let it go, and let it go today with love and honor and respect for yourself and for the person that gave it to you. Now, if you'd like to know more about overcoming people pleasing, I have a free class on my website that you can take, and I'll leave the link below. And in August, I'm doing a class specifically on decluttering and people pleasing. So if you'd like to come to that, I'll have the link below in the description for that. So check that all out. You can look at my website, Facebook, all the things. They'll be in the description below. All right. Thanks so much for being here today. Take care. Bye-bye.